Hi, my name is Jason Arsu. This is an instructional strategy video for Pidp 3106. I'm discussing the instructional strategy of practical labs and how they're applicable to using for small groups. The strategy itself is when I come from a background of cooking, and the instruction that I'll be giving is mostly cooking based. In the past, how cooking is usually done is done in a classroom in which students will sit, look at a mirror above the instructor who's working and is showing them how to multitask and accomplish these things. One of the things that I noticed working in the correction services and the prison systems was that we were not reaching a level of critical thinking or problem solving because we were teaching towards the test. So one of the directions that I proposed was doing practical labs, and the practical labs are where you actually, instead of doing instruction in a demonstration style, you move down to the workspace that they're actually working in, do a small demonstration on a small unit of topic, and then from there working on those as building stones to create so that they can model their behavior on your technique. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to do an example of what I would do if I was doing a small labs on eggs. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do scrambled eggs. Very simple, but it'd be a building stone in which giving a practical application of bringing this down to the students to mimic my technique. One of the things I can do is I can introduce the tools. For example, this is a spatula, but to actually introduce it with a red handle, this is a spatula that can handle heat. To introduce a tool such as a whisk is an aerator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to whisk a lot of air into the eggs to make them light and fluffy. So what I'm first going to do is I'm going to just pan them up, because we're all low cholesterol these days. Pan them up, and I'm going to whisk the eggs. So unfortunately, if you're working in labs as opposed to working in a classroom, you have to deal in small groups. You can move around to several small groups, but what you're looking to do is have them mimic your behavior and mimic. I know that's a bit noisy. What I'm doing is I'm aerating the eggs, and I'm making them light and fluffy, lots of air in there, because when I cook it, what's going to happen is the air is going to be cooked into the eggs. This is something that in a demonstration lab they wouldn't be able to see firsthand. And actually, by working on the station with them, I can introduce the tools, I can introduce the technique, and they can mimic or model my technique. And we're doing something very simple. From this, I would do a building block basis and move on to omelets, and move on to souffles and other things that would go from this one foundation piece. So I whisk the eggs in, light and fluffy, into the pan. As you can see, once again, foamy eggs make for light and fluffy eggs. And then I can show the technique for cooking them. And this is something that they don't have to take notes, because all their senses are going to be appealed to. They're witnessing, they're smelling it, they're seeing it, and they're going to be able to touch and taste it. So working in a small lab, even though it's not a good technique, a practical lab, for perhaps a larger class, it's very effective for a smaller class, because at the end they're going to be able to see the finished product. And one of the things that I've done is I've actually shown them on their own workstation. So now what I would have them do is I would have them set up the same workstation, work with exactly the same tools, and now I would move around and actually be able to coach on a closer perspective with them on what they're doing and further hone the techniques. Again, thank you very much for your time. This was an instructional strategy video for Pidp 3106. My name is Jason Ursu, and if nothing else, I hope you learned how to make light and fluffy scrambled eggs.